That's what they often say.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is no one was born anything.
What? You are losing me in a huge way.
Why?
You don't think that some women are born women and you don't think you're born a man?
No.
So, President Trump just declared that wokeness has been officially defeated, but its dying embers still smolder in the halls of our universities, as exemplified by this woke professor. Rogan, who has zero tolerance for that nonsense, brought the professor on his podcast and dismantled his arguments with facts, logic, and a heavy dose of common sense. As always, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more fiery debates like this one.
Trans movement, for instance, right? That started from postmodernism. That whole idea, right, is that, if you were born with a penis, you're a man and you should do X, Y, and Z with your life, right? The trans movement needed postmodernism to make that intervention and say, no, that's not true, right? You can actually be a woman because woman is an invention. It's a social construct. What much of the trans movement now is doing, which makes me so sad, is that they're saying that I am biologically, essentially, naturally, in my core, a woman. No one is. No one is.
You'd think these tired arguments had been buried long ago, but no. They are still festering like an open wound on our university campuses. Woke professors are out here masquerading as educators while pushing long-debunked nonsense about gender and sexuality, and students are eating it up without a second thought. It's academic brainwashing at its worst. This particular lecturer is just the latest mouthpiece, recycling the worn-out claim that gender is merely a social construct and ironically even throws the trans movement under the bus for daring to claim a fixed gender identity. The hypocrisy is stunning. But thankfully Rogan isn't the type to sit silently through ideological babble. And when he steps in, it's going to get brutal.
The whole point of this movement used to be that you get to choose your gender or choose not to be a gender. You get to move around. Your destiny is not determined for you. What a lot of the trans movement now is doing is a good word, reifying. They're making these ideas, these abstractions real again. They're making these claims that are similar to Sam Harris's claims and to old racist claims and to old sexist claims that if you're born a particular way biologically, this is who you are. Right? Because you've heard a lot of trans people say this, right? I was born a woman. That's what they often say.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is no one was born anything.
What? You are losing me in a huge way.
Why?
You don't think that some women are born women and you don't think you're born a man?
No.
What are you born? Why are you a man?
For all sorts of reasons.
For all sorts of reasons.
And that's exactly how Rogan begins tearing this professor's arguments apart piece by piece. His first question, a bombshell that left the professor frozen mid-thought. If you weren't born a man, then what were you? Boom. Silence. You could almost hear the gears grinding in the professor's head as he stumbled and stuttered, desperately trying to cobble together a response. That's what happens when you peddle this gender is fluid nonsense. Reality hits and suddenly words fail. These ideologues are great at preaching to echo chambers. But the second someone asks a real question, the facade collapses. And let's be clear, Rogan was just warming up. What followed was a verbal beatdown the professor clearly never saw coming.
Born. Why are you a man?
For all sorts of reasons.
For all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
None of them being
well,
biological.
We just decided.
None of them being the XY chromosome. None of them being you have testicles. None of them being you have a penis. None of them being the fact that you generally gravitate towards male activities like boxing, kickboxing, aggressive things.
We just went through this whole thing.
No, you didn't.
Yoel Romero and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but you.
Why are they both men?
But you're a man.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about the broad spectrum of masculine behavior. We're talking about no one is born a man. You're not born a man. I'm not born a man.
I'm saying that no. I think
we're getting
here. Joe Rogan is laying down a basic biological truth. Men by definition are those with the natural capacity to impregnate women. But our professor, clinging desperately to woke ideology, tries to derail the conversation by asking, what about men who can't do that? Nice try, but Rogan isn't biting. He calmly but firmly responds that infertility affects only a small fraction of men, while the overwhelming majority still retain that biological function, and that's just common sense. No field, whether it's medicine, science, or even basic logic, uses rare exceptions to redefine entire categories. You don't rewrite the rules because a tiny minority falls outside the norm. But this professor is trying to reshape reality using fringe examples as the foundation. It's a rhetorical trick, not a legitimate argument. And frankly, it's baffling that someone in academia can't or won't grasp that. Rogan, to his credit, doesn't let it slide for a second.
Category of man becomes meaningless.
Does it?
Yeah, we just did this, man.
No, we didn't. We definitely didn't do
Yoel
this.
Romero and Andy Dick are both
it's a broad category. The lines get blurry at the ends of the spectrum, and I think they cross over. The male-female lines do cross over when you get to that Kenyan runner and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's so broad that it becomes, to me, pretty damn meaningless.
Well, the numbers are incredibly small at those crossover marks. You're talking about a very, very small percentage of the population.
Neither Andy Dick nor Yoel Romero are trans people, right?
Andy might be.
They are so different, though, physically in every way.
Okay, yeah.
But we both put them in this silly category called man. What the hell does that mean anymore?
Andy has children. He made them. He impregnated different women and got babies from them.
There's a lot of people called men who don't and can't.
Okay, yeah, but that's...
Wait. Did the professor just compare race to biology? Is he seriously equating the number of black people in the world to the number of men who can't impregnate a woman? What kind of upside-down backward logic is that? Unless I'm completely missing something. This analogy is a train wreck. First of all, black people aren't some rare statistical anomaly. They make up a massive portion of the global population. And let's not forget, literally populate an entire continent. So trying to lump them into the same category as infertile men who represent a tiny fraction of the male population isn't just a stretch. It's intellectually dishonest. It's the kind of lazy argument you reach for when you've run out of real ones. If the professor was trying to make a point, it fell flat on its face. This isn't just bad logic. It's desperate logic. And Rogan unsurprisingly wasn't letting that slide.
One characteristic. Okay, so why is that characteristic in the man category? If, in particular, that there are some men who don't share that characteristic.
But which ones don't? That's the aberration. The aberration is the ones that don't.
Why is it an aberration? See, these are all
because they can't get a woman pregnant. They don't produce sperm. You're talking about like very, very rare cases.
Yeah, for race, same thing happens with sickle cell anemia, right? This is what everybody invokes when they want to claim that race is real. Only black people get sickle cell anemia. Well, guess what? The numbers there are about the same as the number of men who are infertile. Why then are people with sickle cell anemia definitely black? Why is that definitely a black thing? Same thing. It's, again, why are there's all these characteristics. Why do we draw this line called man around all those different people?
Well, why do we do it with that?
I'm honestly still surprised that Joe Rogan is keeping his cool because this professor's reasoning is straight up absurd. It's like he's demanding a categorization system that's 100% perfect, completely airtight, and universally flawless. But here's the thing, no system is that perfect. Yet, we still use categories every day because they help us make sense of the world. Just because there are exceptions doesn't mean the entire concept is invalid. And Rogan nailed it with his analogy. He said, if I buy a female Doberman and the breeder sells me a male, claiming, well, he identifies as female, I'd be furious and call it fraud. And he's absolutely right. No one in their right mind would accept that kind of logic in real life. So why should we accept it when it comes to humans? Categories matter. They're not perfect, but they are real. And trying to erase them with feelings doesn't make you enlightened. It makes you delusional.
Say Dobermans. Male Dobermans and female Dobermans, right? You can't, if you go to buy a male Doberman and the guy gives you a female Doberman, he goes, oh, but she identifies as being a male. It's just an invention, man. This is a male. But she's a male. You can't disrespect her by saying she's not a male. You would say that guy's crazy and you want your money back.
Are there any two females who are identical?
Two female what?
Anything.
I mean, if you have a really good breeder, you can get pretty goddamn close if you're talking about dogs.
No. There are no two organisms that are identical. Certainly not.
They're not identical down to the hair.
Yeah,
you got me on a technicality, but you can still categorize them as XY or XX chromosomes.
Even homosexuals define themselves according to their biological gender. Gay men are still men. Lesbians are still women. The fact that a man is attracted to or sleeps with another man doesn't magically make him a woman. And the same goes for women. Gender and sexual orientation are not the same thing. And even within the LGBTQ+ community, this distinction is understood and embraced. That's what makes the professor's argument even more bizarre. It completely collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. And honestly, this is exactly why President Trump had to take a stand against the ideological nonsense being pushed in our universities. What used to be places of critical thinking and debate have turned into breeding grounds for confusion and indoctrination. Instead of teaching young minds how to think, they are being taught what to think based on feelings, not facts. And that's not education. That's propaganda dressed in academic robes.
A definition, like saying a guy who is born a guy who gravitates towards male activities, likes females, all those things, by saying that that's a man, that this is a born man. And you're saying, no one is.
So if you're saying if those characteristics are naturally determined, then all of us guys who don't do those things are unnatural.
Which things are those?
All the things
to women,
whatever it is that you characterize as being male. Right?
But that's so common with males.
What is?
Being attracted to women, engaging in sex with women.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Have you heard of gay people?
Yes, it's a small percentage of the population of men. Is it 1%? Is it 10%?
Yeah,
1 out of 10?
I mean, it's certainly a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, it's a lot of people when you think about the 350 million people we have living in America. Sure.
Take all the men. Let's do this. Take all the men who are straight up homosexual, always have been. Hold on.
But you can classify them as gay men.
Take all the men. Let's do this. Take all the men who are straight up homosexual. Always happen. Hold on. But you can classify them as gay men. I know. Hold on. So, just take that whatever that is. If it's 1 or 2 or 5 or 10%, whatever it is, only been homosexual 100%, never been attracted to a woman. Period. Okay. Fine. That's still a really significant number. I'm not done. Hang on. Then take the men who don't identify as homosexual, have had sex with women, have been attracted to women, but have __ men. Prisoners. Pretty damn big number there. Pretty damn wait a minute. How many guys do you think that are attracted to women but still __ men? So Kinsey, the Kinsey study in the 1940s and 50s found that it was I think 30%. What? Yes. 30% of men __ men reached orgasm in a sexual experience with another man. Yes. 30%. Yes. It was a very large number. Kinsey was hanging out with freaks.
Take all the men. Let's do this. Take all the men who are straight up homosexual, always have been. Hold on.
But you can classify them as gay men.
I know. Hold on. So just take that, whatever that is.
Okay.
If it's 1 or 2 or 5 or 10%, whatever it is. Only been homosexual 100%, never been attracted to a woman. Period. Okay, fine. That's still a really significant number. I'm not done. Hang on. Then take the men who don't identify as homosexual, have had sex with women, have been attracted to women, but have fucked men.
Prisoners.
Pretty damn big number there.
Wait a minute. How many guys do you think that are attracted to women but still fuck men?
So Kinsey, the Kinsey study,
sure,
in the 1940s and 50s, found that it was, I think, 30%.
What?
Yes.
30% of men fuck men?
Reached orgasm in a sexual experience with another man, yes.
30%?
Yes. It was a very large number.
Kinsey was hanging out with freaks.
I agree. Kinsey was definitely hanging around with some freaks. But let's be clear, that's all it makes them freaks. It doesn't erase their biological reality. Just because someone behaves outside the norm doesn't mean they stop being a man or woman. That's already a well-established fact grounded in both science and common sense. So honestly, I'm not even sure what point the professor is trying to make anymore. It's like he's grasping at straws. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan is keeping it simple. There are 2 genders, male and female, and they are rooted in biology, not fantasy. Reality doesn't bend just because someone feels a certain way. But here's the problem. The professor is trying to pass off emotion and personal delusion as objective truth. And that's dangerous. When you start confusing feelings with facts, you don't just blur lines, you erase them. And once reality is up for debate, everything else collapses with it.
I've personally known many men who you would consider straight, who identify as straight, who have done something with men. either given them a blowjob, gotten a blowjob, had full-on sex,
Holla.
jerked each other off.
Jesus, you're hanging out with weird
I'm
crowds,
surprised
bro.
this is news to you.
Well, it's news in that even if they did do that, you're talking about individual sexual acts between people who are male or female, right? Mm-hmm. You're still talking about a man. Still talking about a man that's having sex with other men. You're defining it in that way. You're literally saying a guy. You are saying guys who've sucked other guys' dicks. A guy who's done it to a guy. You're saying a man.
Exactly. And that's how you get trapped by your own contradictions. First, the professor claimed they weren't men simply because they were sleeping with other men. But just moments later, he does a complete 180 and says they are men who sleep with other men. Which one is it? This is the kind of mental gymnastics that happens when you try to bend reality to fit an ideology. I thought this guy said there were no such things as men or women, that biology is just some outdated social construct. Yet, here he is using those very same terms when it suits his argument. It's actually fascinating how Rogan, with just a few straightforward questions, got him to admit what most people already know. That biological sex is real and undeniable. No yelling, no insults, just facts and logic exposing the nonsense for what it is. And once that mask slips, there's no putting it back on. In the end, Rogan didn't need to shout or grandstand. He just asked the right questions and let the professor's own contradictions do the damage. What started as a woke defense of fluid gender theory quickly unraveled into a mess of confused logic and backtracking. It's a perfect example of what happens when ideology clashes with reality. And frankly, it shows why we need more voices willing to challenge this madness. Because the truth, no matter how inconvenient, still matters. And this brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed our explosive commentary, then hit the subscribe button for more interesting videos like this. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. All podcasts politics news recently uploaded.